There's more work that we need to do on making sure people are fully cognizant of where the energy comes from and what it takes. Although, let's give people credit, and that is that if we explain the facts and we talk about safety and we talk about where energy comes from, what it takes, and how it gets to their gas tank and their home, then I think they get it. So it's incumbent on industry and people like us to explain those things to people, and they'll understand.
How much more challenging? You talked about how long you've been in the business and how things have, how all the different ebbs and flows you've seen, whether it's prices or this or supply and this, that, and the other. What about in terms of consumer understanding and consumer concern? How has that changed the most significantly over the last, say, few years? You know, we see a lot more media coverage of certain initiatives and certainly about consumer, whether it's advocacy or opposition. How has that changed most?
Well, I think certainly there's a lot more focus on the energy equation as far as advocacy. I think that there's been a significant amplification of the rhetoric, let's call it, around policy issues. And you know, I think when people get concerned about what's happening out there, what happens is their concern sort of goes to the politicians. The politicians put pressure on regulators, and regulators clamp down, which, by the way, is, I think, entirely appropriate. I think regulators are there to make sure things happen correctly, and as companies, I think we have to adhere to that. We have to kind of catch up, because I think the focus by the public is a lot more in terms of its day-to-day scrutiny on what's happening. They want things done safely. They want things done in an environmentally sensitive way, and I think companies are responding to that. They've done a decent job, but we have more work to do.
What might be one of the biggest misunderstandings, or maybe just under-communicated issues when it comes to, say, the oil sands and its importance to our economy and to our energy supply?
Well, number one, I think there may be perception that oil and gas producers, you know, aren't focused on the environment. That's not true. There's been significant strides made in terms of reduction in emissions per unit, lower usage of water, which is a key issue in the oil sands process, progress on land claims, or sorry, land reclamation, progress on ensuring that they're thinking about developing resources in a sustainable way. There's been good progress there. But the other part of it is that I think what we forget about sometimes is the true strategic nature of this asset we have in the oil sands. It's the third largest reserve base in the world for crude oil. And that gives us a huge competitive advantage, particularly since most of the crude oil that's available to produce now is controlled by foreign national companies. And we in Canada own one of the largest reserve bases in the world that's not controlled by national companies. So that gives us an advantage. So we have the reserves, we have the skills to develop those reserves, and we have access to half the world's population on the West Coast. So the oil sands is a critical asset for Canada.